Hey, hey, hey. It's Filter Free Friday, y'all. Listen, I am so glad y'all here. If there was something that people should know, it is don't even think about messing with me as it gets close to Filter Free Friday. But you know what? Clearly, people don't know no better. And so, what I'm going to try to do today, is go through my body of work to make a point that I have to make. In 2016, I was fired. This week I learned that one of my other girlfriends has been fired, and she's like, ain't no big deal. I know how that go, right? You got to put your face on. You got to put your face on. You can't just be like, oh my God, I'm devastated. Not always. So in 2016, when I was fired, what I knew from having worked for a global keynote speaker was that I needed a book right away. I had been working on a book in 2012-ish. I had left a job I loved at a major corporation here in Kansas City. And I was frustrated because many times the work that we were doing around difference, the work that we were doing around including people and making sure people felt like they belong, the work that we were doing around fairness assumed that people were just going to do right. It just assumed that people were good people. And after all, this is one of the nicest companies on the globe. So why wouldn't you assume that? Challenges. People are hateful. People are selfish. People do go through things. And so, therefore, they ain't always going to show up in the best way possible. And so, in those situations, guess what you need? Some laws, some rules, some policies, some regulations. So, I drafted out a little book about what it looks like to work on short term goals and long term goals. I tell this little story about fleas. You put fleas in the glass, they all jump out. You put fleas in the glass, you put a lid on that glass, they jump up and hit their bodies against that lid till they realize it hurts. And then the fleas will start jumping just below the lid. You can take the lid off and the fleas will never jump out of that glass. Can they jump out? Yeah. What has happened to them? They have learned to be helpless. Now, I got a whole issue with the fact that we put fleas in glasses. They ain't supposed to be in glasses. This whole thing is the scientist's fault. But that's a long-term strategy. That's a long-term situation to worry about. In the meantime, while the fleas in the glass, what use is it for me to talk about what scientists ain't supposed to do? I got to keep my mind on that for sure. But for now, what do I do to make sure that the fleas can jump, got the skill set to jump in any way, when they take that lid off, can make it out? Don't ever start turning on each other and thinking that it's their fault. It's always the glass. It's always the scientists, right? I wrote about that 2016 because I needed a book to start my business. The book was called Lively Paradox. That's what I named the business after. The subtitle, An Authentic Perspective on Issues of Diversity and Inclusion. Why did I write this? Because I also wanted people to know. And I don't understand why people still don't get it. Don't bother me when we real close to Friday, because Filter Free Friday is a beast, and you're going to be the topic of my conversation. Yesterday, I get an email. Said email is full of a whole PDF that someone has put together with the facts of a situation that they are upset about. This is their attempt at closure. Now, I don't know if you know. I don't know if you've seen my Facebook messages this week, but I got a whole lot going on. My dog out there, my son out there walking my grand dog, and they get attacked by a dog. The Supreme Court done overturned voting rights. Folk out here upset with one of the nicest preachers on the planet because he running for Senate in Kansas. We done had an assassination attempt. Listen, it's been a week. I opened my email last night. That's what's in it. You know how close Thursday night is to Friday morning? So Filter Free Friday was born because Cassie Atterbury, who worked with me in talent development, she figured out, you know what, if I really want to know what somebody's thinking, I'm going to go see Nicole on Friday because Nicole going to give it to me straight. Now, here's what's true. I ain't really giving it to you straight. It just is the unbridled truth. But this morning, my chief thought partner sends me a note and is like, Ephesians 4:29, I consider that a God wink. Why do I consider it a God wink? Because I'm preaching on Mother's Day, and that's the passage. And that passage is, let no unwholesome talk come out of your mouth except for that which is uplifting to the body. So I'm going to try today. The Nickinator going to try today as best possible not to drag nobody in the corner. Okay? We're going to try real hard not to drag nobody in the corner. Because you know what people tend to think is there's your truth and their truth and somewhere in the middle. But as an engineer, you can disagree on opinions. You can't disagree on facts. The sun's shining on the right side of my face, right? Sun shining on the right side of my face. If somebody say sun ain't shining today, I'm sorry, there ain't no middle ground there. All you can do is disprove facts. You can't just send somebody an email with a PDF talking about friendship. What we even talking about here? Anyway, after I wrote this first book in 2016, I thought I needed, that was self-published. I thought I needed some credibility of a publishing company. And so I did an anthology called Cultivating Culture with about, I don't know, 11 other writers. And my little chapter in here, it was so cute. I was talking about purpose in leadership, and they got my little cute face. And I was so stressed at this time that I was so thin. Let me show you a little picture. Look at me in there. I was so happy. So that's book 2. Book 3 takes me to what else was challenging this week. My chief thought partner and colleague, Dr. Ian A. Roberts, released a book on Tuesday. It's called Unshakable: How Bold Leaders Inspire Through Crisis. And the third book that I wrote was with him, The Power of 7 Second Chances, an empathetic approach to organizational success. And this particular book is about how do you drive success in organizations without firing your way to success. Now, what you should know is email sender loves to fire people. And every time email sender fires somebody, it's always the other person's fault. They always got a beautiful narrative around it. And what I'll tell you from having written this book and getting that message about Ephesians 4:29 from my chief thought partner this morning, telling me to talk in a no unwholesome talk. Here's what I know. At some point, if you are always the person that is at the center of the chaos, you got to look at you. You know what? I can't listen. People choose me, honey. They choose me. I ain't never had no problem with people choosing me. But oftentimes I can't stay in relationship. I got to work that out with my hypnotist, with my therapist, with my friends and colleagues to say, okay, what's my part in this? And if you can't ever say, what's your part in this? Babe, you are the epitome of the victim. You the epitome of the victim. So you got to look at your own self. Book 3. Book 4. Book 4, Culturally Responsive Leadership, Overcoming Indifference in Organizations. Also written in conjunction with Dr. Ian A. Roberts. And what I think is fascinating about this particular book is that all the good stuff came from him, because he's the exceptional coach. All the bad stuff, all the examples of the bad stuff, all those come from me. And the one in particular that I love in this specific book is about jokes. Because you know I'm a comedian. Did y'all know I'm a comedian? By the way, secured the Nelson Atkins Museum of Art for my 50th birthday party / comedy show. If you want to come, you better let me know, because I'm going to forget if you didn't get an invite last year. This book talks about how, under the guise of joking, oftentimes it's where bias lies. And so what I'm doing right now is that, and it is culturally destructive. And I'm giving you an example of what not to do, because it's Filter Free Friday and I don't have no more F's to give. Not today. Not today. You know what I'm saying? I ain't got no. Right before COVID, I wrote this book called Cultivating Culture as a Garden. What number we on? 1, 2, 3, 4. This 5. This the 5th one. This one only take you about 20 minutes to read. And it is an analogy treating our culture like a garden. You know, sometimes you go into spaces, the ground is all rough and tough, and nothing's ever grown there. And so in those instances, what you have to do, what you got to do in those instances is you have to till the soil. When you put people in places they ain't never been before, those folk ain't, they just ain't used to what they dealing with. In those instances, you got to have tiller personality. You got to have somebody who's like, okay, I'm willing to go in here and do this hard work. That ain't everybody. That's not everybody. I am not a tiller. You can't send me into a space where ain't nobody like me been before, because scorched earth, you know, that's just how God made me. You know, that's just how God made me. And I'm so pleased that there are other people who are willing to pave the way before us, which takes me to Dr. Dorothy Height. You know, Dr. Dorothy Height said in 2010 to me, she said, you know what, Nicole, we are taking for granted some of the privileges that we have had. What she was talking about was Voting Rights Act. What she was talking about was affordable access to abortions. What she was talking about was the ability to have inclusive space. And so you like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 tillers. Now, after the soil has been tilled, you get people like me who are planters, people who just trying to build something in the world. But I don't want no problems. I might be the Nickinator. I might give it to you on Filter Be Free Friday, but I really don't want no problems. I just want to build with other people together after somebody else done come in and do the hard work. But you know the problem with people like me? There are always weeds. There are always weeds. And if you don't have weed pullers, those people willing to go in there and go, it's the scientist. It is not. I got to break up these systems, pull up these systems. Your little plant's going to get choked out, babe. Your little plant's going to get choked out. And so what consistently happens is the planters are in the world always like, I just can't find myself. I can't see myself doing X. Well, when you focus on yourself only, you ain't going to make the right decision for community. That takes us to what number we on? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We on 5 books? I think we on 5. All right. 2020. Babe, the bottom had fallen out of things. We had our lovely commander-in-chief, who somebody's saying is watching, our lovely commander-in-chief in 2019 found out about COVID and did not tell us. I'm telling you, I went to Thanksgiving dinner. I went to Christmas dinner. I went to a New Year's Eve party. I went to the Super Bowl in Miami. Super spreader events. And surprised I ain't dead. We lost 1 million people. One of my friends, Loretta Woods, died COVID. Now we act like it ain't happened. You see, because the sun, you see it? Where is it? Let's see if I can find it. Over there, shining through the window on my face. And folk like, nah, ain't no sun out there. Not the truth, babe. Not the truth. 2020, the bottom fell out of everything. I couldn't work. Couldn't get nothing done. So you know what I wrote? I wrote The Holy Educated in Effort. People don't like the title of this book. But you know why I wrote this book? Because I am holy. I am educated. And I've got a whole bunch of grit with me. And the best part about this book is that it's got pictures in it. There's pictures, you know, this is me and my mama. This is me at church in the little chair giving one of my first keynote speeches. And that's my pastor right there. It's the afternoon program, me getting ready. Now, why is this important? Why is this important? Because I am the one who's going to tell you, I'm going to tell you, I don't get it all right. Every time I'm going to tell you. And I'm going to tell you that another really good thing that's happened to me is one time I was out in Ojai, California with a woman named Byron Katie, and she was teaching me about the work. The subtitle for this book is A Filter-Free Guide to Overcoming the Unthinkable. And to me, the pandemic at that time was the most unthinkable situation I had ever gone through. Most unthinkable situation I had ever gone through. And I know you go through unthinkable situations. And so this is not like a step by step, but this is like something to inspire hope in you that, look, you've got purpose, you've got passion, you've got commitment. You holy. That's what holy means. That you have some kind of education. I don't know what it is, but you got some. and that it's going to be helpful to you. And that every single last one of us, when we down on our knuckles, got some grit in there, that's going to come out. That's going to come out. And you can use all of that to help you. That's what this book was. I didn't have nothing else to do, but nobody even let me give them free work. So I every day I woke up, God gave me something to write. That's what this book was. That's what number we on? What number we on? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I think that's 6. Then I found out my biological, well, look at me. I found out my daddy wasn't my daddy through ancestry. I was going to say my biological father. He died. He's the father who raised me. Listen, my hair fell out. It's just now growing back. But during that time, there was like George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, Ahmaud Arbery, just over and over. Everybody sitting at home, they watching all of this. And so people are like, you know what? We got to do better. Because you know what happens when we know better? We're supposed to do better. Millions of people, hundreds of millions of people saying, we got to do better. And I'm like, yeah, let's do better. But I also remember that very first book I wrote. And why I wrote it? Because if you don't have policy in place, people ain't just gonna do better. So folk like, I don't need no law. I need people to just do better. The personal dimension is the hardest to move. What book was that? That was book 4. Getting people to change how they act. That's the hardest to move. That's why you got to have rules. Listen, you think I'm just gonna drive the speed limit just cause? No. Some people gonna speed, but most people, if you don't have no speed limit, they gonna be driving reckless. So you got to have policy. Most of what you have working for you today, especially if we're talking about race, the only reason racism can exist is because you created race by law. So you need some kind of laws to help unpack it. But people like, nah, I don't need that. So I started going around talking to everybody who would listen to say, listen, y'all, if we don't teach folk empathy, the ability to care about what somebody else thinks, feels, and believes before they send an email on a Thursday night about some BS with a PDF attached. If you don't teach people empathy, guess what? They're not going to be able to do none of what you're talking about. Guess who was on my rotation? Pastor Adam Hamilton. You know why he was on my rotation? This ain't no endorsement. Me and Adam, we battle. We battle about things. This ain't no endorsement. But there ain't a person better. He is a good person. I sat in his office crying tears to say, listen, man, my daddy ain't my daddy and won't nobody tell me who is, and my hair is falling out. And I ain't even his member. And he sat there and listened to me. I done watched that man raise $1 million in 2 minutes and use all of it for good. All of it for good. When you hear him tell that story about when he was 11 years old and depressed and had a hole in his heart and God saved him, honey, I don't know how you can't be moved. So I go to Adam. I'm like, Adam, you need to write a book about empathy because these people ain't going to do right. And Pastor Adam said to me, he said, you should write it. And I said, I'm not that empathetic. And he goes, that's why you should write it. I was like, well, dang, Pastor Adam, you ain't even going to say that you ain't empathetic. So that's where we get stuck on that Ephesians 4:29, right? We think that only to say what is uplifting means that somehow we got to tell a lie. No, baby. No. If you abandon your friend when it's most important, what you want? You want somebody to lie for you about that? You can put together a PDF the size of Merriam-Webster's dictionary, and I ain't gonna lie about that. We could still be friends even until you ask me to lie about that. I ain't lying about that. I don't abandon my friends. In jail, I don't abandon my friends. In death, I don't abandon my friends. There's about 2 things you can do to be abandoned. I ain't abandoning my friends. And Adam Hamilton, even though I push him, and I push him on stuff that matter, race and racism, and I push him on stuff that don't matter. European classical art on the cover of his books. But that man getting into the race, you ain't going to convince me that he done something wrong. I'm going to need to see it with my own eyes. Call me Down Thomas. So I write the book. Who endorses it? Don Hall Jr., Adam Fine, my favorite executive coach of mine, and Adam Hamilton. You know why he endorsed it? because he said that a person who does not understand fully empathy and is working on it every day, because that ain't how God made me, is the best person to teach it to other people. And he has been right. Somebody asked me, what's your favorite book of yours that you've written, Nicole? I said, my favorite book is The Wholly Educated in Effort, but the one that sells the most is Spark the Heart, because it's a book about how you can build cognitive empathy to help you be better. And before you send me an email on the Thursday night, look, I ain't a fan of wasting no water using AI, but you should probably run through your filter, make this emotionally intelligent, and tell me if this is the best way to handle a friendship. Okay. Now, I wrote another book. One more. What number we on? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I be forgetting. Those 7 people really know about. I wrote an 8 that don't nobody really know about. Because prior to 2022, I never really allowed myself to feel incredible anger. People used to think I'd be angry. Anger, you got to care enough about somebody to be angry. You a non-factor, as Nene would say. Anger, nobody had no anger. But I finally ran into something that my mind couldn't work me out of. And when I did, my hair started falling out and I was feeling sick to my stomach and wasn't nothing wrong with me. My therapist was like, I'm going to need you to get 3 books. Why did he tell me to get books? Because he knows that I like to intellectualize things even when I need to feel them. I had to get Necessary Endings, which is a perfect book for that dang email I got last night. I didn't read it, by the way. I just put the PDF in chat and was like, unpack this. And my favorite line that is in there, it was like, basically, this is a very structured bunch of noise. Good job not reading it for your own body experience. And so in Permission to Feel, what I learned was that I was emotionally immature. I had 3 feelings I knew. Happy, fantastic, which ain't a feeling, fine. That's all I had. That's it. And most of the time I walk around like this. No matter, somebody just grabbed me by the hair and threw me around. No matter if the police had been to my house. No matter if listen, pure chaos going on inside my house. And I am trying to save the world. So what I do? Smile on. There ain't no their truth, your truth, and somewhere in the middle. Not always. That sun's shining through this window right now, right? So giving myself permission to feel, what I realized was my primary emotion was anger. And I wrote this little book. I ain't tell nobody about it. Redeemed, Lessons About Anger from the Wholly Educated in Effort. Baby, if you ain't had permission to feel, if you don't know how to be vulnerable enough with yourself to say some situations actually do require you to be upset. And when you are upset, that there's certain things that you have to be able to recognize your emotions, understand your emotions, label your emotions, express your emotions, and then you can regulate them. Don't send me no email. You know, when I am doing leadership development training, one of the most fascinating things I think is that people think that proper communication is written communication. Yeah, you want to document something, document it. But if I done asked you to have a meeting to talk about what happened, and then we get to that meeting and you ain't got nothing to say, you talking about everybody else, and then months later, you're going to send an email. You get to be the topic of my Filter Free Friday. Congratulations. This was a fantastic book. You know why it was so good? Because at the beginning of this book, I was mad at dead people. But by the end, I had made my way through. And why do I bring up all of that today? What number we on? Y'all counting? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Why do I bring that up? Because crisis. And how do you show up with an unshakable soul in crisis? Somebody I recently was reacquainted with was like, you just act like all this stuff is so normal. This be going on. You on the news. People out here spreading lies and rumors, folk mischaracterizing who you are. And you just keep going. Well, because my chief thought partner, My chief thought partner is the most unshakable leader in crisis. And when he got detained, we had been working on this book already. And because I don't abandon my friends, I'm going to help him get it over the finish line. And I did. You know how hard it is to edit a book and finish a book when one person don't have no access to nothing except for a phone and some text messages? Woo! Child, very, very difficult. And so when he says to me, Ephesians 4:29, and I'm like, only let your conversation be that which is uplifting to the body. It's reminding me of what my New Year's resolution is every year, but it is also reminding me that we are uplifting the body, not just one person, not just one person. And when I spent 9 weeks reading the 900 pages of Project 2025 online every Friday, breaking that thing down in pictures, trying to explain that ultimately, if they get what they want in this 900-page document, I don't see what prevents us from reinstituting slavery, and not like the new Jim Crow kind of slavery, not like slavery by another name. Like, no, absolutely. Absolutely. What is there to prevent it from happening? What's there to prevent it from happening? And on the heels of that, what I read online was, I don't care how good a preacher is, I ain't gonna vote for him. I ain't gonna vote for him. I ain't gonna vote for him. That's what somebody said to me. And I said, ooh, what privilege. Because for as long as I've been voting, and I will be 50 this year, I have chosen to vote for the best of the worst so that your children don't have to go to war. Because my son done aged out of it. I have voted for the worst of the best of the worst so that rural hospitals wouldn't be closed in Coahoma County, Mississippi. I have voted for people to be able to love who they love and have free and affordable access to reproductive rights and freedoms, because not for me. Not for me. It is us together. It's us together. And when we know better, you would think we would do better. Right now, nonprofits are still reeling because of funding that had been approved that they did not get. And Dorothy Height tried to tell us. I don't want to say any of this because I happen to be smarter than anyone else. I say this because we get distracted, we get divided, and in that division, destruction happens. And on an institutional level, the easiest way to address this is by a law. We keep throwing out these things saying, a law ain't gonna help me. Well, what is? I mean, you might have a lot of hate in your heart for me, but if by law you can't do nothing until somebody come by my house, I am not protected. If the law ain't gonna say that, if the law ain't gonna do nothing about somebody being unhinged, obsessing about you every day for over 8 months after you have said no words to them, that is unhinged. And if the law does not protect you, miss me with the whole, I don't know why our domestic violence numbers are so homicides are so high. Because you got to wait till somebody kills somebody for something to happen. That's why. And what is fascinating to me, with all of my learnedness, and the fact that I even write it down, what is fascinating to me is that the head of a domestic violence shelter would send me an email on a Thursday night with some foolishness after the week I've had. Why am I telling that to you? Because, baby, when it's all said and done, knowing better don't mean do better. Ain't nobody coming to save you. And as my chief thought partner would say, the cavalry ain't coming. It's not coming. Ain't no cavaliers, no way. The cavalier is you. It's you. And so you better put your foot where your mouth is. And this whole idea that, oh my God, this whole idea that what's my one little something gonna do? Babe, if I can eliminate your hope, and I'm talking to myself too, I can eliminate everything. I can eliminate everything. I apologize to y'all for going on and on and on and on. But let me tell you, this week, I feel like the seed that's been planted, thrown in the clay with the manure, and it's all stinky and nasty and being mixed all up, and somebody pouring water on. But you know what I'm excited about? You know what I'm excited about? You know what I'm excited about? That book, Unshakable, that came out this week on Tuesday, written by Dr. Ian Roberts. Every single one of the 52 stories in there have lifted my spirits, including the one about that seed and the one that says, grow towards the light. You keep growing towards the light in the middle of the manure, in the middle of the water, in the middle of the nasty clay, in the middle of being dumped in there. You keep growing towards the light, despite the email, despite the journalists, despite the news story, despite the lies, despite the triangulation, the number of people who allow folk to use them to stress you, despite all of it, babe, despite all of that, you keep growing towards the light. This book might be the bestseller. This one might be the bestseller, but I'm telling y'all, this one right here, Totally Educated MF. Don't forget the MF part. It's filter free Friday, y'all. We got work to do.